Well, good evening, everybody. It's the 389th of March 2020. This is Newcastle Borough Council, the Finance, Performance and Assets Scrutiny Committee. In addition to the members of the committee, joining us tonight live from Castle House is Councillor Stephen Sweeney, the portfolio holder for Finance and Efficiency, and there's a few officers with us as well tonight. Eyes down for the agenda. Item number 1 is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence? No, I can see heads being shaken. If there is anybody yet to join the meeting who's having technical difficulties, our officer may let us know at some point. Otherwise, we'll go ahead with the people we've got. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations to make for any items on the agenda? Again, that's a no. Minutes of the previous meeting appear at pages 3 to 8 of the agenda pack. Does anyone have any comments or questions on the minutes?
Happy to move them, Chair. Excellent.
Do I have a seconder for the minutes? Councillor Hutton, I can see you, and Councillor Grocott. Is everyone else happy with that? Yeah. Splendid. The minutes are approved. Item number 4 is normally the update from Cabinet, but we have nothing to report. I suppose we could ask Councillor Sweeney if he wants to say anything. Councillor Sweeney, do you have anything to report at this moment?
No, Chairman, I haven't, but I've got a text off Councillor Fear saying he's trying to connect.
Excellent. Well, he'd be one that having technical difficulties then. Yeah. If one of our officers who is dialed into the meeting could assist Councillor Fear, I'd be very grateful. We will proceed. Item number 5 is the financial and performance report for quarter 3. Now, we're only a few days away from the end of quarter 4, but time is meaningless now. So let's have a look through the third quarter information that we have got. I'll firstly ask for comments or questions on the financial report, and then we'll move on to the performance indicators. Are there any questions or comments on the text of the report? I'm seeing shaking heads. I'm also looking at the participant list for the meeting. Councillor Stubbs, would you like to?
Would that include the financial position quarter 3, Chair? Or are you just looking at the reports without the sub-reports?
I'm looking at the report without the sub-reports, so we'll do the indicators.
I'll wait to page 15, that's fine.
Okay, well, we'll do the indicators separately as we normally do.
Sorry, no, it's the sub-report for the financial quarter.
Okay, well, there being no other comments, go for it, Councillor Stubbs.
Okay, very quickly. I mean, it's great to see that the council's forecasting to break even at this stage. I suppose what I'd ask the officers involved is, we're looking at the best part of £5 million worth of adverse variances, and whilst I understand fully the support that we get from the government, given the fact that that support we know doesn't fully cover, can the officer update us to where the shortfall will be made up? Thank you, Chair.
Now, would Councillor Sweeney like to have a go at that, or would you like to defer to one of the
I'll start the ball rolling if I can there, Mike. The government has 9 months ago, ourselves and all councils were in major trouble financially. I think that's no great secret. However, since then the government has listened. It's been lobbied by our MP. It's been lobbied by ourselves, the LGA, and the government has come up with a large amount of money for us. Something approaching £5 million, I believe, is the forecast at the end of the sort of first quarter, which has made an awful difference. Well, not an awful, it made a huge difference to where we were. But the actual latest up-to-date figure, I'll pass over to Sarah if I can, Sarah. But we are in a position now, I believe, where the government has done what it was asked to do, and it's made life an awful lot easier for us than it would have been. But yeah, Sarah, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, certainly. There's quite a few sort of different factors, and particularly government funding that we've received to help us out through this last year. So things like we've had the income loss grant. So we're looking at claiming just over £2 million worth of grant from in respect to the income losses. So that's a huge chunk of money for us. We've also obviously been given grants to help us out with the additional expenditure that we've had to incur throughout the year. So, for example, the social distancing aspect of things was difficult with our waste collection service, so we had to put more people on the bin collections and, you know, have more wagons and things on the road to be able to collect all the bins in, you know, within the restrictions and socially abide by those restrictions. So the costs associated with that have been covered by the grant that we've had from government as well. Because of some of the services have had to be closed during restrictions, then some of our expenditure has reduced slightly. So there's some aspects where we've overspent on things like the waste collection, but there's other aspects where we've saved slightly because of those running costs of the buildings and, you know, not, so J2, for example, not using all the heating, etc., and things like that. So we've saved money there. In respect to sort of council tax and business rates, the government have offered us those incentives where we can actually claim back a proportion of those losses on income tax and business rates. And then they've also provided that smoothing out of that particular element of the business rates and council tax that we have to cover throughout the losses. They've smoothed out that loss for us, so that's covered over sort of a 3-year period, and I think it refers to that into the report. So all those different aspects that we've been able to sort of accommodate, and obviously that the government funding have covered us for, will enable us to still reach a balanced out turn at the end of this year.
Chair, thank you, Sarah.
If I could just add as well, of course, we're doing the One Council programme as well over the next couple of years, which will help to put this council on a more sustainable footing in future.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sweeney. Did you have a follow-up question, Councillor Stubbs?
No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, in that case, thanks very much to officers and to Councillor Sweeney for the text of that report. Councillor Fear, welcome to you as well. Councillor Fear has now joined us. We'll move on then from the report text to the performance indicators. There are a couple that we might like to draw attention to, but starting at page, whatever it is, numbers no longer mean anything anymore either. That's the page that I'm on, starting with priority number 1, local services that work for local people. On the indicators there, does anybody have any questions or comments that they would like to make? If not, there is one that is red rated, which is 1.7. It comes under Councillor Tagg's portfolio, but it's about unmet demand to the call centre. And I think it's reasonably fair to accept that we've had a huge increase in contacts to that centre as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. But was there any comment that Councillor Sweeney would like to make about that?
I think that's a very fair thing. You know, a lot of people have been phoning this council up, and that's the reason for that. But it's coming under control. I'd also, if I can, I'll sing our praises of our bin men for the recycling service that we've done, which I think it's been phenomenal, to be honest with you, since this pandemic started. I think they deserve great credit for their efforts they've put in to maintain the services as well as they have, because you'd have hardly, from a resident's point of view, noticed a difference. I don't think. I think they've done a tremendous job. But yeah, Councillor Stubbs, think you have something to ask.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely second what you've just said about the waste service, Councillor Sweeney. That they've been fantastic. Just going back to 1.7, given the fact that the numbers have been so high, will there be things put in place to mitigate that happening again in the next quarter, or has there been? Because I know these are sort of almost 3 months out of date. Will there be things put in place to make sure that those calls holds drop? Because whilst we know, hopefully, really hopefully, that the coronavirus will start to lessen its impact throughout the summer and into the autumn, there's still going to be a need for people to be applying for various things, at least for the next 6 months. We know today the government have voted to extend coronavirus measures for at least 6 months, so that there's still going to be a need. So I find it's a bit unfair on Councillor Sweeney to ask him, because obviously it's not his area, but has that been taken into account looking forward? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I believe it has council stuff. They say it's not my area. However, these reports are 3 months out of date. It'll be very interesting next Wednesday to see what this final figure was. And I think make a valid question. It's a valid point, and when we find out, I'll let you know. But as far as I'm aware, this is a temporary aberration, if you like, that will be solved. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. If our officers could make a note that we'd like as a committee to see that included on the update from Cabinet at the next committee meeting, that would be helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any further questions or comments under priority 1? I'm looking now to see if there are any in the participants list. I can't see anyone, so we'll move on to priority 2, growing our people and places. Any comments or questions on those? They all look green. Beautiful. We used to have smiley faces, they're now green stars.
I prefer smiley faces, Councillor Holland, because you could do it in black and white, can't you?
Yes, absolutely. The shapes are important. I always imagine a smiley face. Sometimes I draw them in myself if I'm feeling particularly cheerful. If there are no comments on that, priority number 3 is a healthy, active and safe borough. We don't even have any colourful status indicators on those, but those are 3.1 through to 3.5. Any comments or questions? I'll take that as a no. Priority number 4, a town centre for all. Any comments or questions from members of the committee? Nope, splendid.
Can I say something, Councillor Holland, please?
Yes, of course, Councillor Sweeney.
The market officer, you're going to expect me to say this, is poised, raring to go to reopen the market with a full programme of events, specialty markets, which we found tremendously successful before lockdown. And I can rest assured that they will continue afterwards. Thank you.
That's very good news. Okay, in that case, that concludes the discussion on that item. I'm having a look at my screen now, and it's gone very dark in meeting room 1. I hope this isn't the beginning of one of those horror films. We start to see things flying about the walls. I don't know if anyone is in meeting room 1. We could switch it off and everybody else's face would get slightly larger, perhaps. But we'll move on to agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 6 is the commercial strategy update. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to introduce this one, or would one of our officers like to speak?
No, I'll start the ball rolling, and so I can continue. This is the commercial strategy which we talked about before. It hasn't changed any. I think it's a very well written commercial strategy. It's very, very clear. It's in decent English, not fancy sort of council speak. We've had a commercial investment advisor. He's done a review. The review is, I don't want to read it out to you because it's all written on the papers, and that's where we are. Have you got anything to add to that, Sarah, at all?
Sorry, yes. So this is sort of recapping back on the commercial strategy that that was approved back in October 2019, and just sort of an update as to where we're at with the strategy. Obviously, due to sort of COVID, some of the areas of work have had to be sort of paused and for the time being, but we have managed, like Councillor Sweeney said, we have managed to complete a commercial portfolio review. So this was looking at all our council assets and advising whether they were still useful to keep and they were actually generating income for us, whether there was anything that we could do better with those assets, and looking at the whole maintenance, the planned maintenance aspect of all those assets. So part of the work that they did identify is that we had established a capital planned maintenance strategy and also investigate sustainable energy solutions. So part of our 10-year capital programme, which was approved at council last month, the capital programme has the planned maintenance in for all those assets for the next 10 years. And we've also considered sustainable energy moving forward. We are exploring different sustainable energy solutions at the moment. So that could be solar panels, for example, a boiler replacement programme, which we've got in the capital programme, and carbon management. So they're all areas of work in progress. And as we sort of get into the year and start to explore some of the other areas of the commercial investment programme, then we will feed those back to you for your comments on before sort of commencing on any work on those. So thank you.
I think the aim of this is to make this again, I'll use a sustainable word again, make this council sustainable in the long term, and these sort of things is vital to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Thank you, Sarah. I can see Councillor Stubbs has his hand raised. Before I go to Councillor Stubbs, is there anybody else who's not spoken who would like to comment on this item? Councillor Hutton.
I'd just like to comment how pleased I was that in the looking at assets, we were looking at the best return from assets and getting rid of assets that weren't giving us a decent return. I think that's good management practice, and I'm sure colleagues right across the council would agree that we want to be practicing the best management practices we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Now, item 7 on the agenda is the asset management strategy. Can I ask officers if the consultancy work that's been carried out, is that the same piece of work that's referred to at item 7?
No, it's not.
It's a different piece of work. Okay. This is commercial strategy.
Yeah.
We will come on to asset management in particular. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just picking up on what Councillor Hutton said, I think the pure accountant in me would absolutely agree with him, but I also think that we need to make sure that we invest in local infrastructure as well as just what's going to give us the biggest return. So just a cautionary note more than anything. What I would like, Chair, if it's all possible, section 2.8 sort of refers to hold fewer and better assets, which would generate better income. I think, again, better income is fantastic, but I'd like to know, as a member of this committee, what we would be thinking of disposing of if we were to dispose of anything, and if that could be bought here, even if it's just for us to read, never mind to interact. And very much the same for the diversification of assets and investment. What I don't want us to do is to suddenly be starting to invest all our money in stocks and shares in London, for example. I'd very much prefer us to have a spread portfolio. We also saw what happened in the dark days of the overseas investments, and it took us years to get that money back. I'd hate for that to happen again. So if we could, even if it's a standing item, maybe every 6 months, just for us to keep a view on what's going on from the investment portfolio. Thank you, Chair.
I think that's a fair point, Councillor. I think it does say increased diversification of asset investment base, so risk is spread across various sectors and geographies, which is perhaps something that we've learned from the past, But no, it's a fair point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. If I may, just to pick up on that then, the report at item 2.8 lists some bullet point advice that was given by the Commercial Investment Advisor. Now, all of those bullet points seem to me to be plausible things that an advisor might advise us, but they do seem to be in tension. So one of the bullet points is to hold fewer and better assets. Another bullet point is to increase the diversification of our assets. Would it be possible for Councillor Sweeney or one of our officers to give an example of an asset that we might not wish to hold, or an example of a lovely asset, or perhaps a lovely pair of assets that we might wish to invest in?
I think the favourite one that always appears to rent very quickly is industrial units. I think that is something that we can always get rid of those. As to getting rid of any, I don't know, to be honest with you. Do you know an idea, sir?
Yeah, just to agree with you, really. The industrial units, we've got a bit of a waiting list actually for industrial units. So that is something that we will be looking at to sort of expand in the future, and particularly with the impact of COVID in getting businesses back on their feet and operating within our borough and being able to offer those facilities to do that. One of the assets, we haven't sort of particularly got to the point of looking at disposing any of those assets reviewed at present. Like I said, due to sort of COVID and the whole global pandemic, that it's changed our sort of outlook on all like the business organisations. I think we're sort of taking a prudent approach to sort of, take stock of what's happening in the world, how that's changed in the different businesses, different organisations, how we're all adapting to that before we sort of, make a proper judgment as to what we're going to be investing in. And like I said before, those investment areas will be fed back to yourselves for comment on before any actions taken.
I think the world has to come back to normality, I think, before we start that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Stubbs, did you want to come back on that at all? No? Okay. Councillor Waring.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, just to go back to the industrial units, obviously the benefits are twofold, because of course we get the income from those potentially, and we also help to promote small businesses. And this is one of the things that as a council we want to be doing in order to try and bolster the energy in the private sector. So that, to my mind, is always going to be an area that we want to look, to promote and grow as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Waring. It's win-win, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any further questions or comments? If we're content with that item, I will close by saying how lovely it is to see the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which Councillor Stubbs will hail. I'm sure those are likely to feature on all of our reports in the future. Lovely, colourful boxes. That's how I like to see my reports covered in bright colours.
Not likely to feature, Councillor, they will feature.
They certainly will, absolutely. And I yes, I have a visual mind. It's much more interesting to look at those than it is to look at the text. Not that the text is not very, very interesting. That concludes item number 6. Item number 7 is a more specific kind of asset report. It is a report on the asset management strategy. It is an update. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to lead on this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Holland. Yeah, the report is fairly self-explanatory. Page 12, it says that we've the 3 items that we've actually sold and had money in since we've been running the council over the last 3 years are on there. There's also towards the back of it, there's a sheet showing all the position of where we are with other items, and the main one of those really for update is the Eccleshall Road Loggerheads one. Which we're looking to receive the money by the year end, and the year end is on Wednesday, and this is in excess of £2 million. So it's a nice sum, and that's hopefully on Wednesday. So is that right? We should receive the money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're on target for receiving those funds by the end of the financial year.
And also provides building land for bungalows, which I think are valuable assets. But thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Sweeney. I think land assets in particular are something, the sale of which and the management of which councillors have expressed a great interest in previously. It's the kind of asset that does generate interest both from members and from the general public. Does anyone have any comments on the report that's in front of us, or any questions for our officers? I can see no hands. I can see no. It must be an excellent strategy, and we must be doing very well with it. Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. Just out of interest, we seem to be selling off a number of public conveniences. What sort of commercial value would something like that have?
You're allowed to say, officers.
Nice one there, Councillor Waring. I haven't got a clue. Not an enormous amount of money. However, if Mr. Durham wants to put it on the list of things, and I can get a response what the estimated values are on those 3. Thank you.
It's only just a matter of interest. I wondered if it was more than a penny,
Yeah, hilariously funny, Paul. Yeah.
Well done, Paul. You got that in there. Councillor Hutton, you next.
Chair, elsewhere, particularly in London, disused public conveniences are turned into restaurants, nightclubs and bars. That seems to be the three largest uses. In other parts of the country, they're turned into art galleries. I've seen all those what used to be public conveniences become.
Well, let's hope we can attract the same kind of investment in the borough if that's something that we're inclined to dispose of. Let's hope our assets find new life in all sorts of ways. Would anybody else like to comment? Not on public conveniences, other things.
I'd like to congratulate Councillor Waring on his question. Actually, he did quite a good build up to it, and
okay. Splendid.
I thought it was actually a serious question halfway through. Yeah.
I think, given the size, Chair, of those two particular ones, in fact, all three, they're 0.01 and 0.02 of an acre. I think you're looking at the one thing that's been suggested for Kisgrove, for example, is an office. That it could be knocked down, rebuilt, and actually you could fit quite a decent sized office there. But I'd love to think there was going to be a bar there, but I don't think it's particularly big enough, Mr. Hutton.
Splendid. If there are no other comments on that report, we can move on. Item number 8 is the work programme. We started, we moved to all-out elections in 2018, and we've had an opportunity over the course of this council to have longer run-in and a more smooth ride as regards scrutiny. But we are now coming to the point where we're up to 12 months before the next council election. So our next meeting will be the first of the last municipal year of this current council. We won't be able to think of exotic work programmes that extend over a number of years. We will be back to where we previously were, which is with a year's cycle and a year's worth of work to get done. We'll have all of the normal things that we would normally consider. We'll have the quarterly finance and performance reports. We'll have the budget to do when it rolls around. Are there any other things that members would like to see on the work programme as we go forward? We've got some things that we'd already determined we wanted to take a look at. Councillor Stubbs indicated that he might want to see us look with some regularity at commercial strategy. Is that something that other members would like to see included at the meeting after next, for example? And I'll start with Councillor Hutton.
I agree with what Councillor Stubbs has said. I think it should be we should have a rolling look at our commercial strategy. It should be strategies are meant to be live, and they will alter as circumstances alter, as Ms. Wilkes referred to earlier. So circumstances change, our strategy has to change, so a regular basis. One thing I would like to do, and I'd like to take part in, is look at our procurement strategy to make sure that it's integrated with all the other work we do. So often we see in the public sector, procurement is a standalone subject that isn't integrated into the life cycle of whatever's being procured. And I would like to make sure that this council follows good management practice and integrates procurement as just one stage on a life cycle approach, because I believe that will maximise our spend. Thank you.
Councillor Hutton, you're a champion of good practice in public sector procurement. Councillor Stubbs, did you want to contribute?
Yes, I mean, I'm not sure if it would fall to this committee or not. I've mentioned it to other committees in the past, and I please forgive the timing because it's everybody's clamouring for a review into the coronavirus nationally. But I mentioned some months ago that I think we ought to do a review how Newcastle Borough Council handled the coronavirus. Now, whether it's a cross committee review or whether it sits with one, I have no particular urge for it to be this one or any other one. But I think that's something that we really should do, just to make sure that should the worst happen and we have to do it all over again, that we react as well as we've done this time, if not better.
Councillor Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Sweeney, what is Cabinet's attitude to lessons learnt and the recovery plan? I know that Cabinet and informal Cabinet are receiving regular updates and that the Council is being steered down the recovery road. What provisions does the leader have in mind for scrutinising or reflecting on the processes that we've been through? Is that something that he's inclined to take to full council? Is it something that he'd like to see at scrutiny?
So we have a COVID update report every month, really telling us where we are with the council and what we're doing and where we're at in the preparation of the town reopening, things like that. But again, I think this is one that Mr. Durham can put on his things to be answered, and I'll take it up with the leader.
Okay, well that makes sense to me. Roger, I can see that your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the EEP committee have regular updates on the council recovery plan for coronavirus, but Jeff and myself will look into that and confirm it. So it may be that scrutiny committee is the one that's been regularly looking at that.
Okay, Councillor Stubbs.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, what I'm hearing is about updates of what's happened, etc., etc. What I'm asking for is a proper review and lifting up some of the rocks that we haven't got time to lift up at the moment because obviously we're dealing with the pandemic. When we're in a situation, you know, I want us to go back to literally day one and say, right, did we do? Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I accept that. But what I'm saying is, we need to be looking to make sure that if the worst was to happen again, that we would have structures in place, because I don't believe we did what we needed this time. And that's not pointing the finger at anybody, because somebody trying to say this was going to happen would be a very dark place. But what I think these sort of pandemics could happen again, whether it's in a year, whether it's in 10 years, whether it's in 100 years, it doesn't matter. We should look at what we did step by step, and also look at business, we'll look at personal, look at staff. What I'm hearing is about the reviews that we do on a monthly basis, and that's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for a proper review of how this council operated during the last 12 months and beyond, actually, and how we build for the future going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. I think that it's a good question. You're right to say that this is an unprecedented situation, so no amount of preparation that had taken place previously would have prepared this authority or any other public body in the UK for the pandemic. It may be worth you considering asking that question of the leader at the next full council. In the meantime, I'm content for that to go on the list of things that we would seek an answer from Cabinet on in the next update. So Councillor Sweeney is going to take that away, and at our next meeting of this committee, we'll see hopefully a considered response from the leader as to what extent this committee is the correct avenue for conducting or participating in a review of that kind. But it's probably something that will want to be done on a wider basis, I would have thought. But it's worth asking the question. We'll ask the leader to account at our next meeting, either in person or through that update report from Cabinet. And also it may be something to raise with full council. I can see other members who would like to contribute, and one of our officers. Sarah, is what you want to say directly related to something that's already been raised?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that maybe Audit and Standards Committee might be a good place for this. It's almost like a lessons learned, isn't it? Exercise, I think, Councillor Stubbs, that you're referring to. So really looking at the whole picture of, you know, what we might do differently if we were challenged with this again, and the whole business continuity side of things, I think. So maybe just a suggestion, maybe Audit and Standards Committee might be a committee where we can almost sort of do a bit of a mini audit on it and have a look at the whole aspects of that under that committee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
I hear that. Councillor Fear, you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and let's hope this wretched connection holds up. The officer's really taken the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say, is this actually, this particular committee, the right place to do that sort of operation? I agree some sort of operation should be done like that. I think it's very important as well, though, to make sure it's a forward-looking sort of thing, rather than let's not flagellate ourselves about the past, but let's think about the past as to where we can go in the future were this to happen again. And when we say that, of course, let's hope that we should be saying were this to happen again, because this thing is taking an unconscionably long time to come to a close, isn't it? So again, I think there's a question of when we want to kick off in that regard. But I think the officer is spot on, so I shall leave it at that.
Thanks very much, Councillor Fear. Councillor Waring.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines before Sarah actually mentioned it. We have already agreed, I think, in the Audit and Standards Committee to look at investigating this in some depth anyway, as I understand it. So I think the Audit and Standards Committee is the right place to deal with this, because there may well be certain internal audit programs that will take into account looking at these different areas. What I would like to say is that, as Councillor Fears just said, we want to look for positive contributions rather than negatives. And I think the other thing is that in the changing society that we're going to be in, it's also imperative that we don't take away all the efforts that we are going to need in resurrecting society, shall we say, from actually doing that and spending all the time looking back at where we could have done things better. I mean, we all know that there are numerous places that we could have done things better, and I think it is important to recognise those things. But we also want to make sure that we're concentrating as far as we possibly can on making things right for the future. So I think that should be the main area of effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waring, and indeed others. I think that, that the leader will, I expect, be watching the recording of this meeting and will be able to reflect on some of those big picture comments that have been made. And
Chairman, can I say something, Chairman?
Go ahead, Councillor Sweeney.
No, I think it's a fair point being made. I do think, though, that this council has responded superbly to the crisis. The money, for example, on the money going out to businesses, 30 million, just like that. I think the waste collection that's been done superbly. So I think, I'm sure there are things wrong, but I think this council's really has come up to the plate and worked in circumstances that none of us ever could envisage. And I think this council has responded very, very well, in my opinion. But I suppose you could say I'm biased. But I think we can be very proud of Newcastle Borough Council at the moment for this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. I think the minutes will record that contribution, and I think that the minutes will also represent our feelings, or let's hope our officer records our feelings accurately. If there are no other people who would like to comment on that, then we've got the work programme as it stands. We've heard from Councillor Hutton about procurement, and then this is our next meeting, but one we're looking for commercial strategy update to be included. That concludes discussion on the work programme. Item number 9 is public question time, and I dearly love the public. There are 6 members of the public watching now, which may or may not include my mum. I can see no questions on the screen. We do ask for questions in advance, but I've not had any of those either. Have our officers present had notice of any questions from members of the public? I'm seeing shaking heads, so no questions from the public. Item number 10 is urgent business. I'm not aware that there is any urgent business. Have our officers got any urgent business that I'm not aware of? And again, I can see no urgent business forthcoming. Well, that's the end of the agenda tonight. The date of the next meeting, according to the piece of paper in front of me, is Thursday the 24th of June. I live in hope, eternally in hope, but Thursday the 24th of June is 3 days after the 21st of June, when the government hopes to have relaxed coronavirus restrictions to the point where they won't exist anymore. So I dearly hope that we will be meeting in person for our June meeting. Have a lovely evening tonight. Meeting over. Thanks very much.
Joe.
Night all.